For anyone who's just looking for like a quick synopsis type thing, for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to say, if you are at all curious about Origins Jazz, get Origins Jazz. As of this recording, he's still available for purchase on Hasbro Pulse, probably available in a few other locations. If you want him, definitely get him. As for why I think that, well, that's a little bit more complicated. But basically, this is just a really great figure. I have said many times that I'm really sick and tired of G1. Like, I don't hate having G1 toys, like G1 styled toys, but I'm really sick and tired of Hasbro and Takara only producing G1 stuff. Like, Legacy is finally moving on into like IDW and Armada, and like that's great. I want more of that. More of that, please. But what I like about the Origins stuff is it's G1 without being G1. Like, this is technically G1. This is actually more G1 than G1 Jazz actually is. Because, you know, from like that first scene in the cartoon where everyone's in their Cybertronian modes and stuff. But this is the kind of thing I can get behind. Something that's different. Something that's not just, 1984 plus cartoon over and over again. And Origins Jazz definitely up there. And as much as I enjoyed Origins Bumblebee, Jazz is better. The vehicle mode is this silly little, Diana said he looks like a dustbuster, and I can't unsee that at this point. Very true. But it looks really cool for what it is. It's kind of this simplistic Sid Mead looking design. I love this giant grille in the front. And the colors are really nice too, with like the blue on the nose, the overall white, and the blue stripe at the back. Some little ports on the back if you want to do blast effects, which I don't, but you can. And windows for some reason, even though this is the Cybertronian mode. And he's got his gun plugged in at the top, which I'm just going to take that off. And the gun looks fine, looks kind of like G1 Jazz's gun. And I do not like it because of this. This bugs me. I've been trying to decide if I want to just cut this peg off, because the whole point of it is this, spoilers I guess, this becomes his back in robot mode and you're supposed to like peg this in so that it's like weapon storage. But that is so silly because you could just store it like this or whatever. You don't need this peg to store it for the robot mode, and the reason that makes me mad is because there's this perfectly good port right here on the underside of the vehicle mode that this gun could plug into, except for the fact that this peg gets in the way, so it can't actually peg in because it just doesn't have enough room to fit. And if they didn't put that peg on the side of the gun, you would have a place to store the gun in vehicle mode that isn't the top of the vehicle. That bugs the crap out of me. So yeah, I might shave that off. I don't know. But gripes about that aside, it's a good looking vehicle mode, and the color separation is good. The colors are nice. You do have a little bit of the color mismatch at the top here because they use this translucent blue for the windows and then painted it white. Once again, why? Because you just see robot junk on the inside. Like, it's a nice shade of blue and all, but it just seems like it would have been better if they could have just used white plastic and maybe painted the windows blue or something. But then I suppose that would have eaten up the budget somewhere else. I don't know. But it's fine. It's not that terribly mismatched. It is mismatched, just not that bad. Yeah, I just really think this is a fun vehicle mode. It looks Cybertronian. It looks kind of like 1930s, 1940s concept of what cars of the future might look like. And for some reason, I really like the spoiler at the back, having this kind of bit going down the center and having it coming up and around. I don't know why that pleases me so much, but it does. Yeah, that's about all I can say about this thing. It doesn't roll because it's not wheeled, but the way that the arms fold up underneath, which as you can see, they're just arms right there, they kind of make it look like it's hovering a little bit, which is cool. It's a little bit like like the Studio Series and by extension Velocitron Blur mold, where it's designed in such a way that just kind of looks like it's hovering when it's sitting there, and I think that's neat. Now, as far as sizes go, it's more or less a deluxe-ish, like smaller deluxe, I guess, size figure, which I think stands to reason. We bring the usual folks in for comparisons. You can see that, it's roughly deluxe size. Roughly. I mean, Burnout's a somewhat compact deluxe, so the fact that he's a little bit smaller than she is yeah, it's a little bit on the tiny side, but it's still, I still think it works. Let's get these out of the way so we can do the most important size comparison, right? The one that everyone comes here to see. Maybe. Alright, transformation time, and be happy that I'm using, well, I'm happy that I'm using a headset to record things these days because none of you have to deal with the incessant noise of our horrible upstairs neighbors that's going on right now. But anyway, transformation on this figure is pretty simple, but it gets the job done. It does a couple of interesting things. So I find the best thing to do is to pull the nose up slightly so that you can untab the sides a bit. So just pull that up just a bit, and that will free this up so that these can untab and swing out. They actually tab into the sides of the arms there. So untap that, and then this will bring this up just a bit and kind of unhook these tabs from the legs here. And yes, this is translucent plastic, and I understand people being nervous about that, especially because, like, you can see there's a hinge in there too. And also given Studio Series 86 Jazz's problems. But, as Balt Matrix explained in his video, and I'm going to reiterate here, this plastic, like all of the plastic on this guy, feels uncharacteristically sturdy and of a higher quality than I'm used to with official Transformers. I don't know what it is, I don't know why, I don't know if this is something they're going to keep using or not, but this feels very chunky and sturdy. And the same goes for the translucent plastic. It's a bit thicker than it has been in the past for these kinds of things, so I'm more confident that this is going to be okay over time. Anyway, with all of that said, we're gonna slide this up and away from the body. And when going into vehicle mode, there are these little tab sections here. They kind of slide into this bit here, just underneath this lip on what becomes the robot mode chest. So that's kind of how you want to orient those. But anyway, slide this back and away. I'll pull this. Getting this situated is a little tricky, but basically you want to accordion this up. And there we go. So pull that up, pop this out, and this will swing around. And I thought there was like a tab thing here, but maybe not. This just kind of, oh, there, yeah, okay. I couldn't really see it, but there is actually a little tab on this port here that tabs into the slot on the double hinge section. So that settles into place there, and we can just leave that as is for now. I'm going to split the legs, and they peg in pretty solidly. Perhaps too solidly. There we go. Unpeg the legs, and now this section will peel back around the leg, and I find it's best to grab this section, which is like the foot, and push against this, and that will swing out like that. And then you combiner wars the leg out, and it will kind of settle in place, like soft lock a little bit in that position. And with that done, we can swing this out the rest of the way so we can fold this panel in. And this is one of the interesting things about this transformation, how this panel just kind of tucks in, and this closes back up, and this little slot on the panel pegs over the knee section here, and that keeps the leg nice and solidly clipped together. So like that joint is not going to fall back inside the leg, and it gets the panel out of the way. It's a very simple but very effective transformation, and you pulled out the toe. And there you can also see the little slot there that will become the kind of locking point for this whole assembly. I don't know, it's, as I said, it's a very simple transformation step, but I think it's really cool. I appreciate how that shores everything up and cleans up the legs just a little bit. So there we have the legs done. Now we're going to swing the arms, what are obviously the arms, out. And I'm just going to raise them up to get them out of the way. Rotate the bicep, and then flip out fist. And it does kind of ever so gently click into place. Then same thing on this side, rotate it and swing it around, click that in place. Now I will say right now, he comes with another accessory other than the gun that's like a little grappling hook thing that can peg into his hand. I have that tucked away because I have no interest in that accessory, so sorry, that's not going to be shown off. Also, that's why this port is here, so you can store the grappling hook in vehicle mode here. But again, like, you could peg the gun in there if there was just enough room, because that stupid peg. So, yeah. Anyway, last bit to do is finish accordioning this down. This will just accordion down around the midsection. And the chest comes down, and there is this tab here that plugs in just below the head. And that finishes up Origins Jazz. And this is, like, I really, really like this. This is incredibly cool because you've got this Cybertronian alt mode that looks a little bit on the strange side, but works. And then it turns into a much more kind of show accurate representation of the robot mode of G1 Jazz, which I know I said I'm tired of G1, but like I really appreciate that in this specific context because the alt mode is definitely not the typical G1 Jazz alt mode. It's really cool. And it cleans up pretty nicely. Like, yeah, he's got some chunkiness around the backs of the legs because of the spoiler, and he's got the backpack. But overall, it cleans up really nicely, and I really, like, this kind of gives me similar vibes to the clones, like the Decepticon clones, Pounce and Wingspan, and the Autobot clones, whatever their names are, in that you've got a different looking alt mode, but a similar looking robot. And in as far as this compares to his G1, like more standard G1 self that turns into, what is it, a Porsche? I just really like that. It's a really cool design. It's a really cool, like, the way they made this figure is really cool. We'll get into it, but the posability is pretty decent as well. And yeah, I really like this figure. I'm really glad I got him. And here's where you can see the lackluster weapon storage, where again, like, that peg didn't need to be there. You could just use this peg. You just do that. It's fine. Or this. You could peg it into his shoulder if you want. I don't know. Anyway. The proportions are really nice. The legs are a little bit chunky, as I said, but the overall proportions of the robot mode, I think, work really well. The color breakup is really nice. And they painted just enough on this guy. Like, they painted a little bit of gray on the toes, so the toes actually have a two-tone gray, which I think is really cool. The shin panels, I believe, are painted gray. Pretty sure. Let me open this back up to double check. Yes, okay. So this is black plastic that they painted gray to give him the gray shins. So you've got the gray in the shins, you've got the gray in the midsection, and then, of course, this torso piece, which is clear plastic. And I'm sure they did that. You can see there. I'm sure they did clear plastic because headlights, but I feel like they really didn't need to. but you know, it works. And the color matching here is okay because like it doesn't, if you look at it right next to the plastic, it doesn't match. But because the torso bit is not actually like connected to visually any other white bits, the fact that it doesn't match exactly doesn't really stand out. So it works better here than it did in vehicle mode. But yeah, like the breakup is really nice. They even did like a little bit of black on the forearms here because this is actually white plastic, but they did that black so that it blends in with the bicep a little bit better. And it's just a really, really nice looking jazz. I love this thing. And of course, it's you know, it's G1, but it does still have some decent detailing, like some nice molding in the toes and the shins and the thighs. He's got his crotch vent and his molded abs section. Not entirely sure why these slots are here. Nothing tabs into those. Don't know if there's like something that's supposed to tab there or something that was supposed to, or maybe it's something that'll come into play for like a potential remold in the future, or maybe it's something else entirely. I don't know, but those are there. The chest does a really good job of replicating the G1 Jazz Porsche chest look, and because this is a fake piece, it's more proportional to the rest of the body. We've also got the nice molding in the arms and the fists, and then we come to the head. And Origins Jazz, the head is... I'm hesitant to use the word perfect, but it's kind of perfect. It's, I don't know, it's about as spot on for a cartoon Jazz's head sculpt as I can think, with like the shape of the helmet, the visor, the downturned visor, the silver face. This looks so Jazz, and it looks great, and I love that they painted the visor that really nice, vibrant blue. It's not light piped, which I know some people will be upset about that. I am not one of those people. I just think this looks great. I suppose it would have been nice if he had more of a fun expression on his face, but like the sculpting on this face is great. The design of it is great. It just looks perfect, in my mind at least. As for articulation, as you saw with the head, it is on a ball joint, so you can get some left and right tilts, some up and down, and some rotation. The shoulders can go all the way around, though they do kind of, well, yeah, they kind of butt into stuff going on down here, so you got to be careful of that. But they can go all the way around. They also, because of the transformation, have a little bit of butterfly motion on them, which is pretty cool. And they can go out a little bit past 90. You have a bicep swivel, goes all the way around, a 90-degree elbow that can swing back a little bit, which is more for the transformation. The fists can rotate inward. As I said, you've got that peg that you can use for the grappling hook that I'm not going to show off. And despite everything going on here, you do have a waist swivel, and because of where the backpack sits and the way it tucks in, even though it's like in, like this is in, it's not really gonna, like you can kind of pull it out a little bit, but like this sits in pretty solidly, and they're actually these little tabbed things that went around the hood chest sit into these grooves on the back here, so that helps to kind of keep things in place. So with that pushed all the way in, you still get a pretty decent amount of waist rotation, and if you pull it out slightly, you can go all the way around. So that's really nice. The legs can go forward to slightly past 90 and back to slightly under 90, but if we get this out of the way, they can go much further past 90. With the backpack in place, the outward motion stops here because it kind of bangs into this, but if you move that out of the way, you can get much further out. And again, like you can move this out of the way, but you don't have to move it out of the way that much for it to clear the articulations. So I like that. I like that it solidly kind of sits in place and doesn't interrupt things, and then if it does get in the way, you really don't have to move it much to get it out of the way. Anyway, you have a thigh swivel, which incidentally, if you notice, there's no, aside from what's going on here, which this is for the joint, so that emptiness makes sense. And what's going on here, which that's where the fist sits, you don't really get any hollowness on this guy, which is cool. Like I'm not a big like, oh, hollowness is the devil kind of person. It's fine. It does not bother me anywhere near as much as it bothers some other folks, but I still appreciate the fact that they took time to get the legs designed in a way that they're nice and solid. Anyway, yes, thigh swivel. Then the knees bend slightly under 90, which is a shame, but given all the bulk back here, I understand why. And then the feet, you have the little toe wiggle, and you can use the ankle tilts to get quite extreme, though it does break up the sculpt a bit. So yeah, Origins Jazz is actually quite posable. He looks great. And I don't know, I just really, really like this figure. I'm super glad I got him because he is great. And he looks great. And then, gun, as I showed, you can peg it on the back, peg it on the shoulder, or you can just put it in his hand, as it probably should go. And there we go. This just looks so good. I love how well he cleans up, even if it's not perfect. It still looks like G1 Jazz, even though he turns into something very, very different compared to the car mode that, we're so used to seeing in the G1 cartoon. I know I'm just kind of nonsensically gushing right now, but I don't care. I really like this figure. It's really good. And as I said, the plastic on it feels really nice. So, highly recommend. Also, despite being a little on the small side, he's not that small. Like if we bring in all of these folks, you can see that he's a little bit shorter. Oh, brought this up too high. He's a little bit shorter than Burnout, yes. Burnout, who is already not a super, like she's a little bit on the short side, for a Legacy Deluxe, but he's a little bit shorter than Burnout. That said, he actually feels, I could be wrong, but he feels a little bit heavier because of the denseness of the plastic. And like, I don't dislike Burnout at all. I think Burnout is great, has a great transformation, but I actually think his transformation is a little bit, I don't know, simpler and more fun. I think he ends up looking a little bit more dynamic as a robot, even regardless of the posing. So yeah, I think it's a worthy trade-off. And I'm not going to do a comparison with every single Jazz that I own, but just for the heck of it, we're going to bring in Make Toys Downbeat, so you can see how Origins Jazz measures up. And he is smaller, but I don't know, I think he really looks the part. He could definitely use a little bit more paint, like, as you can see on Downbeat, there's like the detailing on the hips are there, but it's not actually colored in. And, there are some other details that could probably be taken care of with this, like the grill section in there and stuff. But overall, it's really cool to me how you've got what is very obviously the same character, the same overall look, same visual style. It's with some obvious differences because they're completely different figures made for completely different types of markets and stuff. But, all of the proper beats are there. And yet, this turns into a car and this turns into a flying dust buster. I just think that's really cool. And then, once again, the most important size comparison, the only one that matters. Here is Origins Jazz with the Duck Tank. And that's going to do it for, I think it was Buzzworthy Bumblebee Origins. I'm pretty sure it's Buzzworthy Bumblebee. But yeah, that's going to do it for Origins Jazz. And as I've said many times over the course of this video, this figure is excellent. I love this thing. And absolutely get it if you're even a little bit interested, because he is worth it. He is fun to mess with. He's relatively simple, but he cleans up well. He's pretty nicely posable, especially considering, like, it's a Buzzworthy figure. Not to disparage the Buzzworthy line, but, they tend to be slightly simpler things. And he just looks so good. This is, like, Origins Bumblebee was great, but this is just... it eclipses that figure so much. Even if you have these panels that are kind of cutting into the shin design, it doesn't matter. This figure is so great, so worth getting. But that's enough about what I think. What do you all think of Origins Jazz? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I still don't have an outro sorted, so buy it. Yeah.